All right. What's going on, everyone? So we are good to go. Everything should be good. New mic, so if things don't sound right, let me know because I hopefully have set it up properly this time, but you never know. Starting 5 minutes early, just like always. So we have SPY pulled up. We'll look at this. Overall thoughts on the market. We'll talk about that first. I'll answer some questions first, and then I want to go through, I have a list of 10, 15 different stocks that I'm watching, not necessarily in. I mean, actually, at least these ones on this list I'm not in. So I want to go through all those because I think there's some really good ideas there for people to take this week, potentially next week. There's stuff that I'm just kind of cycling through. If something goes, either gets news, runs 20%, whatever it is, and then I cross it off the list. I don't want it. Let it come back down. All right, Mike sounds good. Awesome. So I see ETTX and Veru. Let's talk about those really quick because those were, let's ETTX quickly. And then I know Veru, people are talking about it. So ETTX, the only thing with this one is that it spiked. I just, it spiked already, so I'm probably just not a huge fan. Now, we were watching this one a while back. I think we were watching it down around 2. It fell through 2, unfortunately, but then it found some support in the upper 150s, and then it started to uptrend. So ideally, I mean, it's tough in the moment to see that, but, it seemed like it was holding up, so that would have been a better time to be jumping in. Now, it popped a lot, so for me, let it come back under 2 is a better spot for it in terms of risk reward. So maybe 175 is obviously, if you get as close to 175 as possible, that's a better, more greedy entry. I think there's a lot of potential with this one, though. And then Vero with a pretty nice PT coming out. So here's people were saying, this is something that I personally will not be touching just because it's already up a lot. But that said, with that $15 PT, price target for those, PT means price target, this could go. It could go 10. I think it can go to 10, certainly, especially now because the other thing that we have to note here is that the overall market, let's pull it up, so the futures are green. Now, they're not massively green, but they're decently green. So this would take probably some negative news for us to kind of go red into tomorrow morning. So we'll see what happens tonight. Of course, like always, stuff can change in a blink of an eye. So that's always, a risk. But it looks good. So it looks green. Now, my only concern with this is that the vaccine, all that stuff was priced in. So that being said, we'll see what happens. But I still think we're going to get a lot of positive press. I think news stations, I think a lot of the media is going to take this and run with it in terms of vaccines being distributed, as much video as they can, pictures, footage of the trucks, distributed. I think that's going to be all over the place. So that hopefully will just, that's positive for the overall sentiment. I'm hoping, right? That's the idea. Let's see. Good time to buy DRIV. I mean, first, for something like that, for DRIV is something that I would just be buying. So it's like, if you buy it right now, right, it's one of those where maybe it pulls back if we get an overall market pull. But the thing about it is that you're talking about Tesla, Apple was up there, Google was up there in the top 10 holdings, NIO was in those top 10 holdings. A bunch of those stocks have kind of pulled back, I mean, at least as of right now, as long as the market stays bullish, I expect them to go up. So if those stocks go up, I mean, we're going to see DRIV go up. So it's not something that I would recommend just waiting for a pullback. If you're going to be waiting for a pullback, you're going to be waiting for an overall market pullback is kind of what I'm saying. So I would buy something now. And, potentially we're seeing it, hey, maybe into the end of the year, if we get stimulus, I think the market's going to love that. If we get stimulus, think about it, stimulus going into the end of the year, the market should be nice. It should stay at least flat to green. I wouldn't expect it to go too red into the end of the year if we do get stimulus. Now we have a vaccine, right? So all that stuff going with it, of course, when you think one way, it likes to drop the hammer on you the other way. So you got to take that into account. But I would say it's something you want to just buy. And as let's say you get $100 a month or whatever the number is. Let's say it's whatever number is that you're setting aside for a long-term investment every month, every year, whatever it is, you divide it up and say, hey, I'm going to take 10% of that, my monthly recurring amount, and I'm going to put it into DRIV. Month, you're just dollar cost averaging. You're just buying more as you have it because I believe think about it. What you're buying is you're buying Tesla, you're buying Apple, you're buying Google, you're buying a collection of stocks. So that's really what you're buying. You're buying stocks that are in a sector that I believe tech, very hot, autonomous driving EVs. I mean, that's a very hot sector. Not only right now, it's going to be hot. Even when EVs do cool back, to a bigger degree. Because if you just take a look at NIO, for example. I mean, NIO's come back from the crazy highs we saw, but even if NEO does come down into like the upper 30s, like I'm kind of saying, hey, if NEO comes down sub 40, I'm just going to be buying more because I think that's a great deal. Even if we get that, in the next couple of months, let's say it happens again in early 2021, I think that's a good buying opportunity. Just my take. Let's see. Okay, so CLSK, GIK, okay. We'll talk about a bunch of these. So quickly first, let's look at SPY and then let's see how it's holding up because before we dive into a bunch of other questions, because look, SPY, we had this resistance right here. I think on the, let's see where it was. We got to pull up the 4-hour chart. I want to make sure I have this start up here. So pull a 4-hour chart up, and the reason why I say 4-hour chart, I think that gives us a better idea as to that 365 area of prior resistance, because that's what I was watching before. Yeah, so here it is. So if we're looking at the 4-hour chart, what we can see here on SPY is that we had this 365 area hit a couple times. So like right here, we had a wick through, but really we couldn't break above that 365. Right here, again, kind of got stalled up around there and popped over, held it as support, which is a good sign, and then pushed up for those all-time highs. Now we came back, and so we're pretty much holding up right around that 365. So for the overall market, that's support right now, and that's a good sign. If we can't hold that, maybe down towards like 360-ish would be my next level of support back in this level of consolidation right here. So things look good for that on that front. So now it's like, okay, finding some long positions to take as long as the market stays bullish, that's even better. Now, with a lot of penny stocks that I like to play and we'll probably talk about here, does it really matter too much if the market's up or down? Not necessarily, but if you're in 20 different stocks and the market's down 1%, you're going to feel it. Your account's going to certainly feel it, and those stocks will probably be down more than 1% each. You might have a couple outliers that run up a couple percent, but for the most part, you'll see a bigger drawdown in those stocks. So that's just something you have to understand. It's tough, especially when you're in a lot of stuff, and that's why I want to definitely thin out. I'm hoping, hope is not a good word. I'm anticipating a bullish move into the end of the year. If it doesn't happen, we can, of course, you can adapt to that quickly, and you need to, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if we get that, then into 2021, I'll start to trim things down, be a little bit heavier cash, assess how things are going, and then we'll see what we want to do from there. Okay, so we're going to go through a bunch of stuff. Let me quickly go through a couple questions, and then I'll dive into this whole list, because I got this list for those who are just jumping on. If you guys are just jumping on, make sure to hit the thumbs up button so we get more ideas in the chat, because that's the idea. It's the whole point of these lives. More ideas, awesome comments, awesome feedback back and forth in the chat is a good thing. So going through market exploding this week. You would think with the vaccine news, but I think a lot of that's priced in. I think a lot of that was priced in. I mean, Pfizer is a stock to definitely be watching. Pfizer is the stock, obviously the vaccine, Pfizer's vaccine. It made this big time move, but again, it was like a sell the news type of a thing, because now we got the approval, right? But it kind of pulled back off of those highs. Now, I still think Pfizer, if you look at like the weekly chart, we zoom out, Pfizer has a lot of room to the upside. I think for sure this could be a stock well over $50 at some point in the next couple of months. But we'll see what happens. With Pfizer, lots of buying volume. But I think this past week we saw a big anticipatory move, and then the news, and then it's like, okay, sell the news. And so you'll see that a lot of times. It's not uncommon. But we had this nice little breakout of this downtrend. So I like Pfizer, to be honest, overall, just as a larger cap stock that, if you're looking for a stock that could outperform the markets in the next 6 months, I think this could be a good one for you. Okay, let me jump and dive through a few questions here. So BFT, let's take a look at BFT. It popped good. So again, this is a stock where you're going to see probably, let's pull up the, this is one where you're probably going to see a continuation. Okay, after hours it pushed hard. So this is probably going to be a gap up come Monday. And if the market stays green, should be solid. But if the market goes red, then this could pull back. Because you're going to see with a lot of these either SPAC plays or a lot of these higher growth stocks in general, like your EV stocks, when the market's down, the market doesn't have to be down huge. If the market's just down, 0.5%, those stocks can be down a couple percent off of no news. There's no additional, there's an offering, or, there's this. There's just no additional news that we didn't know of the day before, but, those stocks pull back. But on the green days, like, for example, if the market was to go up 2% on a given day, like the overall S&P or the Dow or NASDAQ was up 2%, you can see a lot of those stocks go 5-10%. I mean, it's not uncommon. So this is a stock that definitely, it's up a lot. So, I mean, $15. Now let's see if it gets to 20. That would be the next target for something like BFT, in my opinion. Let's see, PSTH. Speculations. Yeah, there's people. I remember we were talking about this one too. This one again is just kind of, it's a little speculative to me. So personally, I'm not in. I'm staying away, but I mean, it could definitely go 30 plus very, very easily. I'm thinking. CLSK is one that I haven't played, but I know there's been a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people like it as a long-term, more of a long-term play. So taking a look at the daily chart, so I think it hit a new high, right? 1846 is the new high. So we had a pretty nice breakout of kind of this range we've been in. This range from like, the upper teens, like the upper 13 to 14 level down towards like $7. It's a pretty volatile range if you think about it. But it's pushing up. So this one looks like it's really regaining momentum to the upside. Green market definitely will help. Thoughts on GIK? This one, okay, we look at this one, but this one actually, it kind of came down towards this trend line. So it's holding this trend line right here. So I wouldn't want to see it break a new low. So I mean, not a new low, like a lower low. So wouldn't want to see it kind of break down below 12. If it holds above 12, I think it's fine. According to this trend line, at least that we have kind of right here, but a pretty big pop on Friday for sure. And I am loading up on FSR calls actually. I believe that this is an opportunity to be buying some FSR. For those who don't know, this is Fisker. So they have, they're producing electric vehicles, right? So they're producing a sustainable electric vehicle. The Fisker Ocean is their first model. They have a bunch of more they're planning on at least announcing, at least I would imagine soon. I think the Fisker Alaska, there's been hints of that one. That one's coming next, I believe. But it's holding, if we actually look at this trend line right here that we kind of have, it's holding that line around that 50 SMA. So if it holds up here, it's a good sign. I don't really anticipate it going that much further to the downside. If it does, I think we're seeing manipulation, and we're kind of just seeing people getting scared out by either these price targets, these ratings, and things like that. Rating it, Goldman Sachs, I believe, with a neutral rating. I don't think those are bad. Wolf Research for the first part, I don't think it has as much credibility as, for example, like Goldman Sachs or even like Citi. But that said, I think we're going to see more news coming with them very soon. And so I'm looking at, I have shares. I haven't sold a single share, but I'm starting to buy some longer term May calls for next year, just because I think $20 calls, by the way, so the strike price is 20. So they're kind of speculative, but at the same time, I think we'll get a quick pop. Either it happens in the short term and I take my profits, or it takes some time and I have some time on those calls. So I'm not super worried about that. Thoughts on GLSI? Yeah, the thing with GLSI though is that, like, I think the problem, let's take a look where it finished up the end of the week. Absolutely insane. The problem is that it's going to take some time to settle down. I think we're going to see, questions. I think we're going to see, I haven't looked into, to be honest, exactly what's been going on after the initial news, but we're probably going to see questions on the news. We're going to see, people trying to say, hey, like people trying to come out either with, hey, this is good, this is bad, whatever. So they're going to be in the news a lot. So let it calm down, let it settle down. It's too volatile. If you're someone who's fine with the volatility and you're looking to scalp it, sure, go ahead, but it's just, let it settle down. If it finds some support around like $40 or $50, maybe that's a better potential entry. But even that said, I don't know. I'm not going to mess with that. Okay, so let me just dive through. I know there's a lot of questions, a lot of ideas in the chat. So let's go through. First off, what I'm going to do is overall market, right? So let's look at this. I'm going to dive through at least my thoughts, and then we can go into more questions. So if someone's watching this one after, at least it's not going to be like a 30-minute video, or they're not going to have to go through like and spend 30 minutes just to find the section where I go over some of the stocks I'm watching this week. We can talk about my positions as well as we go through, but let's go right on through the list that I have. So the first stock on the list is BIOL. Reason why, and we're going to look at the daily charts for all these stocks first. I always start on the daily charts just to get a sense of kind of, broader scale price action. And then you could even look to weekly charts. And then eventually from there, I zoom in to find, maybe I look at the 180-day chart, so the 4-hour chart. So we'll zoom in. So look at BIOL. It fits that kind of biotech kind of sector right now, in a sense. Healthcare biotech sector that's been super hot right now, with a lot of those cancer-related stocks, with a lot of stocks announcing positive results on data. BIOL is holding up on that 50 SMA, oversold stock with a prior history of spikes. So yeah, lately it's been pretty lame. If you think about the past couple of months, since August, September, when we had the sell-offs and a lot of small caps and a lot of these stocks, yeah, it's been lame. But that said, it's been actually doing decent and holding up around 25 cents as a pretty solid support level. So 25 cents, I would like to see that level hold. I wouldn't want to see this thing dropping under 25 cents. If it does, we look back to the left and we do have some support down here around 21 cents, in the low 20s. So yeah, could it go down that low and then spike? Sure, that's what happened, last time in a sense. But I like it to hold that 50 SMA. If it can't hold that, hold 25 cents. So this is an accumulation zone for me for a move. And think about it, from where it's at right now, a 30% move is only moving back to 40 cents. So if BIOL goes back to 40 cents from 30, from just under 30, that's still a 25+% move that you're capitalizing on. I think it's very, very doable. So we're buying something as low as possible. If it does dip down, keeping our mental stop under 25 cents seems like a pretty good risk reward to me. That's why I like that one. It's on the list for this week. And what I also do with all the stocks, at least recently, now the market's always going to be changing, and so you have to adapt. But lately, this has been working out. A lot of oversold plays. So what I do is I pretty much write what's my worst case scenario downside from the levels right now. So for BIOL, I did the calculation: 16% downside with 30% plus to the upside. So getting it to 40 cents is a 30% upside, with 16% to the downside if I hold it down towards 25 cents. So for me, that's a solid risk reward. I'll take that any day, right? We obviously have a higher reward than our max risk. And ultimately, with a lot of these, right, the reward can go more. Just because I say I'm targeting 40 cents doesn't mean that that's as high as it can go. It can certainly go more. So I would take off a good chunk of shares, but I would definitely ride it up, especially if there's news or if the volume really pours in and this thing keeps going, for sure. ASTC is the next one on the list. Yeah, I was watching it. I want to get it closer to this trend line if I can get it. If we do get a dip, I like ASTC down at these levels. Personally, I'd like to see things be quiet. I don't want to see too much stuff on Twitter, on stock twits, things like that. If you see too much attention on a stock, usually, that means you're probably going to be buying it, on one of these little kind of spikes up, these like relatively small spikes. But again, that kind of throws off your risk reward. So for me, ASTC I think is okay under $2, but ideally, I would like ASTC down under 190, down around 185, if not even lower. That's where I would really like ASTC. But based on the prior spikes, I think there's a lot of range on this chart, so I like that one a lot. NVCN is one that I think just had an offering. So usually I was looking at it, it was on my list as it was down here around that 85-cent level, and then they had another offering. So this is actually setting up like a decent level of support around that 70-cent level. And we have a couple gaps. Now, the first gap goes from like 77 cents up towards 85 cents. And if we get to the second gap, that goes from about 115 up towards about 175. So what I'm going to do quickly on this one, just put in our lines because we want to have them as areas of support and resistance based on the chart. So we got a horizontal line right there. That's the start of the gap, and here is the end of the gap. We also have the 50 SMA. This is going to change as time moves on, but that'll probably be an area where I'd look to take profits as well. And then we have this kind of gap right here. So we want to see if we can get over that 77-cent level and get back up towards that 85-cent level. So those are the ranges I like for NVCN. We'll see what happens on that one, but it's a decent risk reward in my opinion right there for right now. I know we're getting a bunch of stuff. Let me just quickly go through if I see anything. SNDL is breaking out of the downtrend. We can talk about that one too in a sec. So it's starting to reverse because we got the extension, the 180-day extension by the NASDAQ, I believe. So the risk with SNDL was that they weren't going to meet the minimum bid requirements. They had to be over $1 for 10 consecutive days, and they're not. So now they have until 6 months or 180 days from at least I think like last Friday or something to do so. So either what they're going to do is either the stock price is going to go up, they're going to have news that's going to send the stock up. The stock's getting a lot of attention now, so that stock with news can really run. Or they're going to have to do a reverse stock split to get the stock price back over $1. So we'll see what happens if they do have a reverse stock split. Usually you see the stock pull back. Then once you have the split, if the company is smart, I don't know, I don't want to use the word smart, but if the company kind of knows what they're doing and they really want to run the price up, what they'll do is they'll drop a press release or they'll drop some news right after the reverse stock split. So either a day after, right after, it depends, a week or two after. And that means the float of the stock, the amount of shares available to trade has been tightened up by the reverse stock split. So there's less shares available, which essentially just means more volatility. But when you have a positive press release, more buying volume can send the stock price up big time. So that's where I kind of like it. And look at an example really quick. HJLI. It was a stock I talked about here on the channel actually a while back. I traded it. I made a few bucks on it, but I wasn't paying attention to it lately. This was a recent reverse stock. How do you know? Well, if you look at Webull, you look at like the 4-hour chart, you'll see generally like something like this. So from 27 cents, the thing did a reverse stock split, right? So this isn't a move. This isn't like the stock went from 27 cents to $7. No, it was a reverse stock split, and then it popped. So it really went crazy on Friday. It went up like over 80% intraday. I think they have data coming, and it was an example where I have a thing where I say if I trade a stock and I'm watching it, I literally wrote down like every 30 days, HJLI has updated data that they're releasing. So every 30 days they're supposed to release updated data. And so these spikes line up pretty well with every 30 days or so you get data. Now, of course, right now I think this move was for anticipated data, so it didn't actually wasn't like it happened. I think people were anticipating the data. I think it's next week or something like that. So that's kind of what we're seeing right there. But again, if you're paying attention, you follow it, boom. You can definitely play something many, many times in a few months. And this one could have been done so multiple times. Okay, so let me go through some more really quick. So other questions, CIDM, I believe I don't know enough about it, but I know a lot of people like it long term. And GNUS, it looks like it's doing decently well. We can talk about that one in a second. HEPA looking good. Yeah, we're waiting on either news or we're just waiting for a pop. My only issue is HEPA. Which is not an issue because the thing is for HEPA, look at where I am. I don't have as much as I wanted to. I told you guys, I think last week and the week before, my plan was buying a chunk at around that 150, buying another chunk around that 125. If it dips that low, and then if it dips even further, buying a chunk around $1. That was my plan for HEPA, and it's doing decently. We're getting more volume, getting more attention on it. Oversold play with a gap to fill. I want to see this thing getting over $2. So ideally, my first area of taking profits is around 197. That's just what I'm gonna do, and then we'll see how high it can go after that. Again, if it does have news, this stock can run. With a lot of these stocks right now off of positive news, they are running big time. So hopefully the news gods can shower us with some good stuff this week because that would be awesome. GOVX stuck in GOVX. We're gonna look at that really quick. Yeah, it's probably gonna come down towards that. I mean. If it can't hold, let's see, if it can't hold this 340 area, so it's right around. So if it holds 340, I think it's fine. If it doesn't, I would say give it a shot down towards like closer to 3, down towards that 50 SMA. That would be my take on that. That thing went nuts though in intraday. I mean, like 100% intraday on what if that was Wednesday? So that's crazy. Okay, so AESC, by the way, was one that I just missed. It could totally go for more. Let me pull it up. AESC can totally go for more. The problem was that I was looking at it under this 50 SMA, and I just didn't take it. I think when I was watching it, I wanted to get a pullback. I had it on the list. It wasn't like top priority at the time in terms of the risk reward, at least that I saw. And then it's been moving up. So I wanted to get this thing down closer to $1. I missed it, and then boom, it just kind of went. So this is looking really promising. So for those who are in it, I think it has more room to go. But for me, I would be looking at like these kind of spikes right here up to like that 160, 165 area could be an area of resistance. Then I would look for like that 175. So you break those levels, then $2, and we'll see from there. But that's that. Okay, let me go through a couple more stocks that I'm watching. Let's take a look at EFOI. I think someone brought this one up last week. EFOI is kind of it's not bad. The problem is that it's kind of starting to show weakness. So for me, a couple closes now below this 450, not a great sign. Does that mean it can't reverse? It certainly can reverse to the upside. So if you're in, I might give it another day or so. But if it goes below like 425, I'm out of this one. If I'm in it, it was something that's worth taking a shot down towards this support line that we found. But as of right now, it's not looking as promising as it once did. Okay, so CRBP, let's pull it up. Okay, this one's looking really good. I'm not in this one, but I'm watching it for this week because we have this 50 SMA here at 120. So I would like to see it kind of holding above that level right now. Oversold stock with room. So this stock gets either news or this thing gets a lot of volume and attention because a lot of what we've been seeing lately is that even if a stock doesn't have news, like for example, ADTX, we can talk about that one too, but we talked about that one for like, it seemed like months on the channel. I like it so much. It was oversold. It was so nice. And we were waiting for a COVID antibody test emergency use authorization. Haven't gotten that news yet, but all of a sudden, either someone knew something and volume started pouring in, traders found it, people started figuring it out, the stock spiked like 80% in 2 days, or almost 100% in 2 days. I mean, that's nuts. So that's what we're kind of seeing. A lot of these stocks that are oversold, we're seeing traders find them because they have range. And once you get enough volume into a stock, it doesn't take too much before it starts hitting, people's scanners, which for those who may not understand what that is, you don't need to worry about that too much right now. But people who trade full time, they have all these scanners that they run throughout the day, and they're seeing either accumulation scanners or volume scanners. All of a sudden, we're seeing increased volume, and they're like, oh, what's going on? They take a look at the chart. Oh, this is a good risk reward. They buy some shares, or they like it, or they do a little bit of digging. Oh, they have this coming up. Boom. And before we know it, the stock price can really kind of pop, even if the news doesn't drop. So that's what we've been seeing, especially in a hot market like this. That's what you generally will see sometimes. It doesn't necessarily back in August, September, no, that was not happening, but now it's happening. So it's time to take advantage of this stuff. Okay, so Crbp, we went through that one. Let's take a look at the next one on my list is BVXV. So it's not a super, look at the range. I think it was bad data. This thing has massive range. Again, not a huge, if you're going to take this one, be ready for pretty decent volatile swings. I would want to see it hold $3. Again, it's at $3.50. So you have decent downside risk, but the upside potential here is massive. So it's something that if you can get this thing down towards 3, it could be worth your while in looking into that one further too. CREX, it popped up 9% and it was up decently after hours. So again, not something that I took. I was watching it because it was up. I was like, oh, if it comes back down towards like that 110, 105, that 50 SMA is sitting at that level. That's where I wanted it. Okay, ideally it's going to potentially, go from here. If it does, it breaks that 125, 135. That's a great sign for Crbp to make a move towards 150 plus. And then I would say 200 SMA sitting right here at 165. And then we have this little bit of a gap from $2 towards like 225. So maybe it takes a shot at that at those levels with potential news. So that's what I'm watching. HTGM, I think they have data coming or something coming. So I think that's why it's on the list. But the only problem with HTGM is that it's coming up off of these lows. So could it keep going? It has lots of range to the upside for sure, but it's coming up off of these lows. So ideally, I would like it down towards that 50 SMA. So if it comes back down towards $5, that's a better dip buy, but this one could certainly go. So if you're looking for like a momentum trade for kind of drawing a trend line right here, and if it holds your trend line, you stay in. If it cracks your trend line, you get out. This could be a decent play. It's tough to kind of see because these kind of candles are a little bit, wonky, but it's still potentially, if you go draw from the bodies of the candles, like there's your rough trend line right now. So according to this trend line, let's say on Monday, if it comes down towards like 550, that's a decent buy as long as it holds the trend line, right? And then a couple more we have left. WEI, let's take a look at WEI. Reason why I like this one is because it's sitting right here. Like we have prior spikes and it's coming back down to levels that it bounced before. So we have decent support around 130. So anything under 150 to me is decent. I want to see if it holds up on this 200 SMA, but this one, with news or with a quick little pump, this thing goes pretty easily. And then CJJD, also on my radar as well, not in this one either, but it's potentially going to bounce off that 50 SMA. So when stocks are above $1, above 50 cents, but like barely, they're right there, I like taking shots at them there because when I see that, what it shows is like, okay, well, this stock, those levels, 50 cents for penny stocks, is strong support. $1, also generally a very strong support. So when stocks are above it, yes. When it's below, it's resistance. So it may bounce right off this level. So this could be a very good risk reward. Also, 50 SMA sitting at $1 as well. This stock right here, CJJD, with downside to worst case scenario, this thing goes down to like 90 cents. I'd be willing to start accumulating some CJJD if I didn't have anything else on my plate. It would definitely. I have a lot that I'm already in. So it's if it's still on the list and it hasn't run by the time I cycle down through to this one having a pretty good risk reward compared to other plays that I'm watching, then yeah, I'll take a shot at it. So that's definitely one to watch as well. So okay, that is it for at least my new ideas that I have. So those are all the stuff that I'm watching into next week. If you want to write them down, whatever you want to do. That's awesome stuff. I think it's good. And I have a video pretty much detailing how I find that. Either I find them from either social media, either I find them from FinViz. A lot of them I find from FinViz too. It's been working right now. So, you can't kind of, go with what's working. I can't really, shy away from that right now because until that changes, I have to stick with it. All right, now I can go back. I'm sorry if I missed a bunch of questions. But I will now be diving in. Do you have a choice, Apple, Nike, or Starbucks? Apple. would be my personal choice. Let's take a look at NNDM. So, okay, NNDM, lots of lines on here. Don't worry about these lines. I know they're kind of like a mess. But we have a general uptrend. It's been pulling back off of where it was, so that's something to note. I would want to see it holding up around that upper fives, like that 580-ish area, 575 plus, like towards like the low sixes. Why? Because you have some wicks up here in the past, down up to like 6, a wick up to like 580 here, and some areas of these wicks to the downside, some support areas. So if it can hold the $6 level, that's a good sign. If not, I could see it coming down towards $5, which I would say is a decent buy. I actually have, let's see, I have NNDM from sub 5 is when I have it. So unfortunately, I didn't sell any up here, but I just bought it for like a longer term play. So, speaking of those scanners, I noticed pretty much anything with low float and increasing volume will run. Well, yeah, exactly. That's what's been running recently. I mean, that's the stuff. I mean, that's the thing that you gotta, that you have to also kind of play into, and something that I've also been kind of doing the more I've understood things. When I first started like trading penny stocks, I had no idea what I was doing. And so stocks would spike off of news that I'm in. They'd run, 100%. They'd run 30% a day. And I'm like, why? And this is actually pre-pandemic. This is not like the COVID market only. This is pre-pandemic. I had no idea what was going on. So this stuff is always going to be here, pandemic or not. It's just going to change the sectors, and it's just going to change kind of how exactly things work, But the idea and the potential is always going to be there. There's always going to be stocks that run. The amount that run, there'll be less, I would imagine. But that said, who knows? We'll see what happens. But I mean, now that I kind of know how this stuff generally works, and I know about people's scanners, I know, hey, if a stock gets over a certain amount of volume and it breaks over a certain area of resistance, yeah, it's probably going to run, because I know that I'm not the only one that's just finding it. There's people who have scanners who are doing this, and I have a trade ideas scanner that I get through a group that I'm a part of, so I use that in the morning. But outside of that, I don't need to use that stuff, at least as of right now at this stage for me. I just don't feel like I need to. It overcomplicates things, but eventually, yeah, it's something that you could definitely, if you get more into becoming more like full-time doing that, then that's something you probably want to have. It's a pretty good tool and resource. They just cost a decent amount per month for someone who's a brand new beginner. I don't think you need to be paying like $100+ a month for all these extra things when you can just simply put in the time on the weekends or at night to find the plays, find what's, like what I just was showing you guys, going through the risk reward on a lot of these stocks, putting it in, at night and saying, hey, like, these are the ones I'm watching. I'm going to try to get in at support, and I'm going to be selling into the pops, and that's it, That's that. All right, let's take a look at NVAX. Okay, so this guy it popped out of the downtrend, so we have that going for it. I don't know. Personally, for me, it's just kind of a weird, it could be a good sign. This dip down here could have been the decent dip for a bigger move up. I don't know enough about him, so I can't say, oh yeah, like I'm all in on NVAX. Personally, I would say it's just hugely overextended from where it was. Is that warranted? Maybe. I just don't know enough about it personally to say, hey, like I love NVAX. It did break out of this downtrend, so it's showing a bullish move right now. Support down here, around 105. So if it comes down towards 105, it could be a decent dip buy idea. Keep going. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys hitting the like button. That is we have to see if we can break the record of 300 plus likes on the stream. We had like just about 300 like a couple weeks back. That's the key. If we can break that 300 likes, that'd be insane. That's the goal. But we got some time, so we can still get there. IDEX is jaded. Yeah, I personally don't like IDEX. I personally don't, because it's already overextended. I just wouldn't. Well, okay, so it's sitting right here. If it holds up around 180, maybe take a shot at it. But if you're gonna play it, buy it at 180, and you anything below 175, you're out. Like, that's kind of how I'd play it. So I want to see IDEX coming back down. I mean, this spike was nuts. It was awesome. Come down. Now DPW, one that people also like to talk about a lot too, is kind of doing its thing. So we actually talked about DPW. I was in DPW back here, like right as it was breaking out of this downtrend. Unfortunately, I sold most of my shares before $3, so I didn't catch the most of this run to 10. Had I known DPW would run to $10 plus, that would have been insane, and I would have held my how many shares I had, and it would have been awesome. I would have made a killer week. I still made a decent amount of, a decent profit on that trade, but nuts. And the problem I think here with my DPW trade too was that I'm still coming out of like the end of the summer, early fall market, where not that I was where I was kind of cautious to a degree because things were not running. Things had just in general not been running this much. And so I was kind of cautious and taking my profits wisely. I should have left more shares on just for the run. That's what I should have done ideally. Let's see. So there's DPW, right? So it's holding. Let's see if it can hold up around this area. What you'll see is you'll probably see with a lot of these stocks a very nice chart setup that we can kind of see. Is it coming down and then making a pop and then coming back down and either holding up support or making a newer or finding a lower support? So I'm going to wait on this one. I'm not going to touch it. I'm just not interested in this guy at all. It's just up too much from where I was originally in. So for me, not worth it. But again, it could certainly go. Naked long puts on NVAX. DGLY, I know a lot of people like DGLY. It's just a riot stock, police stock. I think we've been seeing this actually is a decent stock, a decent chart setup. So kind of a similar chart setup to DPW. Like we just saw DPW, right? So we had the big pop and then it's coming back down. But like I said, DPW, I would expect it to spike. Either they drop news or something happens, right? It spikes up with these little pop. But again, it comes back and develops some support. So what we're seeing right now with DGLY is very nice support here down around that 200 SMA. So this 200 SMA, this orange line, which is sitting as of right now at 213. So around 215, I would say, is your support level for right now. Also, it's holding up on the 50 SMA at 240. But I mean, your absolute floor right now is your 200 SMA. So for DGLY, this looks decent in terms of risk reward. I just haven't seen it make a sustained move. So it's either it's priming itself and getting ready for a bigger sustained move over like 325, potentially taking a shot to 4+. That's what I want to see. Only thing is that this stock really likes to run, or it likes to get more spikes when you see more riots and more kind of unrest. We're seeing some stuff in DC. I've been seeing some things as well in DC lately, but not enough, I would say, as of right now. So I don't know. We'll see how this kind of plays out. If we don't get stimulus, I think, into like the holidays, I could see that could be a potential riot opportunity for people, which could spike DPW around the next couple weeks. That's the other thing to watch too. Stimulus. I mean, we have a week. This is it. This is the week, right? So we have literally how many days? 5 days of Congress they're here. Like they're ready to go. And if the deal is done or not, if they end up going home for break for vacation, I think there's going to be a lot of unhappy people because there's so much stuff. There's no one. People haven't gotten stimulus in so long, and you see it now. Like, especially I'm not political by any means, because I think both sides here are just absolutely wasting each other's time, and they have been. But they got to get something done. Some agreement can be made. Something's got to be done. Just you go outside. I mean, in cities, it's just horrible to see people the state of some people. I can't. But that all aside, let's dive into some more stuff. Okay, other thing to talk about too. TNSP is people have been talking about a lot. I'm just going to cover it really quick. I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan. I know people have been getting crushed on this one because people who bought up here. Look at where it was. I mean, look at where the stock was. It's up so much. I'm not a fan of that. I don't mess with that. If I was going to do it, I would take absolutely lottery money that I'm just fine with just throwing away. So for me, it's not, I don't know enough about them, so I can't say, oh, it's going down, it's going up. There's been a lot of attention on social media, and when I see that and I see a stock up this much, I stay far away. That's just my take, and that's just my experience. So I'm not the TNSP kind of guru here. Not a huge fan. Let's see, Riot covered calls. Yeah, Riot's going to pop at the open because that's what I was going to talk about too, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, we've been talking about the past couple weeks too in the streams, but the thing about Bitcoin is that it popped. So let's take a look at the 1 hour chart to see the pop that we got. Or the past couple of days, like this weekend. So we closed up the market on Friday. Everyone kind of goes, hey, whatever it is, what it is. But look at Bitcoin now. So we kind of came back and found support here in the mid 17s. And then the past couple of days, actually, really the past day and a half, it's pushed pretty hard. Now it's coming right back up to these levels, right back to where it was. But think about where stocks like Riot, where stocks like Mara, right? Those stocks are some very nice Bitcoin stocks I like to play. Look at where they were compared. So Riot closed up sub $9. Now Riot was once $11.29 when Bitcoin, right, was back up in here. over 19. Now, Bitcoin is back. If it holds up over 19, Bitcoin's back over 19,000. Riot should be a nice gap up candidate, same as Mara. Now, what I've also noticed with those two plays as well, and we can talk about them, is a pretty simple pattern that I've noticed. Now, is it also a Bitcoin pattern? I haven't looked enough into it to say that I can correlate it perfectly to Bitcoin exactly. But what the pattern is, I want to look at it really quick. It's this pre-market dip. So, okay, this was on Friday. So see this dip now, okay, there's not that much volume, so you're seeing kind of a scattered candle setup here. But you see the dip down sub 875. You could have scooped up shares of Riot sub 875, and within a couple hours, within half hour, an hour or 2 hours, you could be selling this thing over $9. Now that's not a huge prop. It's not a huge trade, right? That's not massive. But for a quick day trade scalp, you had the opportunity. Again, the day before you had a dip down, down sub 860. You could have sold it again back up towards 9. You had a dip down towards 850. You could have sold this thing overnight at the end of the day. So when you get these kind of knifes down here's a better example. So this is back on the 9th. So the 8th going into the 9th, right? Bitcoin's kind of fading off a little bit, right? And Riot opens up here 4 a.m. because you can trade at 4 a.m. on some platforms like Webull, for example. That's my shameless plug of the day. You can still get 4 free stocks. No, but actually, this is what I'm using. So for those who have the questions of what platform I'm using Webull. You can trade from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Link in the pinned comment or link in the description box if you're ever interested. All my videos, it's always there. But it dips down to sub 840 and then it recovers back to nearly $10. That's only pre-market. Appreciate it, Mike. Appreciate it. I want to talk about those next. Appreciate the donation. But then it recovers, massively. So that's a scalp, right? That's a scalp trade that you can take almost any time. So I like Riot. I like Riot and I like Mara. I'm waiting personally. I made enough money on them this past couple weeks. I'm waiting for the breakout, for the bigger move, and then I'll take them. Okay, let's take a look at GNRS. Boom. Okay. Green Rose Acquisition Corp. So it's their SPAC, right? So a lot of these SPACs, right, they've been hot lately. So this is thing as close to 10 as you can possibly get. This is a solid risk reward. Again, we're talking risk reward. This is great. I think this is great if you can get that one. DMYD. This one, I believe, I was watching this one last week. Was I? Okay, let's take a look at where it's been. I'll look at the daily chart here really quick just to get a better sense. Again, we have a gap down. So if it does come down, here's our spot to be grabbing some because many times these gaps get filled. And it works the same way to the downside as upside with a lot of stocks. So we've got a gap in the chart, right? We've got a gap from this 1250 down towards 1170. So if this thing does come down, now, okay, it's sitting a lot higher, but if it does come down, your dip buy support or your add zone would be down sub 1250, down towards 1170. Maybe it fills it, maybe it doesn't get it perfectly, but that's your opportunity right there, I think, is a good spot for DMYD. And then what's the last one? MCAC. Mountain Crest. Very similar setup here, though. We have, right? We look at this. We have a very similar setup. We're sitting just sub 11. Sub $11 is solid. As close. These are the same. It's the same kind of idea. As close to 10 as possible is ideally the situation for a lot of these SPAC plays and a lot of these kind of acquisition companies. As close to 10 as you can possibly get them, and you're set up for solid risk rewards. I'm personally not scaling out. I have AMCI still. Let's look at AMCI. I still have AMCI. I sold all my PIC in the short term, but I still am holding a bunch of shares long term, not even thinking about it. I'm just kind of holding them. But AMCI, look at the volatility. So market's down. AMCI is down 5% in a day. You buy it. Literally the next day or intraday, you can scalp that at a minimum for a few percent to the upside. If not, you can sell it once the market turns green, right? These SPAC plays, a lot of these stocks that are super volatile, but they have a lot of potential. When the market's green, they are very green. So hopefully we see a lot of these SPAC plays push tomorrow. Let's take a look at the futures. So futures are pushing up a little bit higher from where they were. So that's a good sign. So things looking pretty good for tomorrow. AMC, I'll look at AMC. I'm not a huge fan personally. Just my take, because we'll see what happens, but there's a lot of growth more recovery stocks, I think, that have a lot of potential. So AMC here is still sitting sub 4. We look at back where it has been the past couple of weeks. Yeah, AMC was down sub 3. That would have been a massive dip Could it get a nice recovery? That's one of the stocks I'm watching. It looks like a good stock, I would say. These types of stocks, the airline stocks, cruise line stocks, I mean, take your pick on your favorite one. Give it I think it's worth giving a shot down at these levels for at least the next couple of months. I think it's not just going to be like, okay, this vaccine was somewhat priced in. The question's really, I think, going to come down to, okay, overall market-wise, do we get stimulus? That could be a short-term spike, whatever. But then ultimately, now with a lot of these recovery stocks, the next step is, okay, now how do we kind of progress? Just because we got the vaccine to 50 million people, okay, cool. But how fast can we get the rest vaccinated, right? Because there's like 300 plus million, right, in the US, if not a lot more. I don't even know. Last I remember was like over 300 million. So think about that, right? And this is just the US, and we're not even talking the world. But there's a lot of steps to go. And so I think developments and the process of that. So on top of that, though, stimulus is key because inside of stimulus, right, there's money to be set up for vaccine dispersal. And if you can't disperse the vaccine and get this out to people, what's the point? How great is the actual vaccine if you can't get it to people? So there's a lot of stuff to be watched. But this is a stock that I think is I mean, honestly, AMC, I think a lot of people are realizing that, hey, theaters in general are dying. So there's my take. I wouldn't be bullish on AMC for the next 3 years, but bullish on the next 6 months. Yeah, I think it could certainly be worth a shot. Especially sub $4, it looks decent to me. Double bottom, we have a nice double bottom around $2. So AMC looks like it's making a nice kind of reversal move to the upside. I would say making like, kind of like one of these type of looks if you just draw a rough kind of trend line, something like that. Now, is it going to go back 10 plus? I'm not going to, go there, but it could make a shot up towards, $6 or $7 in the next couple months, I think. So some long-term calls could be good. But kind of like the idea that I'm doing with Fisker. So FSR, I'm buying long-term calls. I'm buying $20 calls. If the stock spikes in the next month, I'll cash those calls out today. I mean, like once they go. If it doesn't, I'm fine holding, those longer-term calls until we get a spike or if we get a more of a sustained move, to the upside. Rave is looking good. The only problem with Rave is that, well, I wouldn't say it's a problem. Let's just draw the trend line first and see what we kind of have. So here's what I'm looking at for Rave. So if Rave comes back down towards this level, let's see if it holds $1. If it can't hold $1, maybe it holds up around 90 cents. Then I want to see it come on to this trend line. But bounce on this trend line, what it's been doing lately is it put in a low right here in the around 40 cents, popped up, right? We got news. It came back down, very nice support here around 68 cents. Now it popped up, or we had a couple spikes. Let's see if it can develop a higher support here up around 90 cents, around $1. That's where it looks like it wants to. Let's see if it can do so for the next kind of leg up. A very spiky stock. So it's something that I personally, technically speaking, like it there. Has a lot of range to the upside, especially with some more moves up. I appreciate it, Mike. IPOC, I actually have some IPOC, to be honest, in a long-term portfolio. But it's pushing up. It's looking good. This is a stock that, again, I think that certainly, we had a lot. It's a very similar SPAC chart, right? Initial pop, comes back down, goes back down close to that $10. For those people who are sleeping on it or people who are paying attention, like, for example, this is what I did with PIC. I'll look at this one. I'll come back to this one, but this one, PIC. So PIC pops up. I liked it back when it popped, and I was thinking about buying it. I said, hey, I'm going to wait. And then I bought PIC down here, had a low $10 average. Boom. And boom, it's popping. So I like it. I like it a lot. Now, IPOC, same type of thing. Same setup. So I think it's got some range. It's kind of consolidating, or I'm putting in a potential bull flag here. So we're kind of consolidating in this range. Want to see it breaking 12. It's got a nice little gap up towards 1250-ish, 1230, 1250, and then potentially a shot back to the highs. I am bullish on this one for the next few months at a minimum, personally. GIH. Take a look at this guy. We kind of have your same like range, right? $10 support. Looks like, upper 10s kind of your resistance. So around under 10 and 50 to me looks pretty good. If it does come back towards 10, that's a spot to grab again. Let's take a look at IPOF. Same. Okay, so this is looking, like it's putting in a flag. So we got to see it break above this 1160. So it's kind of flagging here. Let's see if we can put in like a 1 hour chart to get a better view. Because when you don't have as much chart history, that's when it's really helpful to look at like the 1 hour chart. And when we're looking at the daily chart versus like the 4 hour chart or the 1 hour chart, make sure you first off on your settings on whatever platform you're on. For Webull, for example, make sure you have, where is it here? Show extended hours. If I don't show extended hours, we see a different chart pretty much, because extended hours is going to show you pre-market and after hours. So we have a pretty nice flag. We have kind of, your upper end of the flag up around 1150 towards 1180, and your lower end down towards like $11. Is your kind of your lower end. If it does drop below 11, then look for a bigger dip. Breaks above 1180, a bigger push up. That's at least my take. NETE we can look at. If we get 300 likes, I'll give you a secret stock. I'll give you my secret stock for sure. To be honest, guys, I legitimately do not have a secret stock. Like I pull up my positions for you. So like for those who want to just look at it, those are what I'm currently in. I talk about that one also on Saturday's video. But every single stock on my list that I had on the list earlier in this stream. So if you were coming in late, jump back to the beginning once it's posted or whatever. If you can rewind, I'm not sure if you can. Maybe you can. I know once it's posted, you can go back and watch whenever you want. Check them out. I mean, that's just, I don't have anything to sell you here. So like I share the ideas. Like, I ideally I try to be kind of, because I realize, right? So here's NEAT. Here's my kind of chart for NEAT. We have this 15-ish area. That's we got to break that 15 and push up. Yes, I don't. I literally don't. I don't. Maybe there's like another idea that I have in the back of my head that I haven't taken a position in. But I mean, other than that, I share all the stocks and at least some in on the short term. I'm gonna do a video on the long term portfolio. It's kind of like not like your conventional kind of. I'm definitely more willing to take risks, I would say, in the long term portfolio. I guess, is it because I'm young? Yes. But I know people who I watch, people who have finance channels and stuff like that, their kind of investments, a lot of them are just very cautious, very index fund based. Get your 7%, 10% per year. I mean, just after experiencing in the past couple of years of just seeing stuff, I know it's very, very doable to achieve significantly higher than a 10% per year. And not even that, I'm saying like if you can just compound gains at 25 to 50% per year, which is nothing crazy, by just managing your positions a little bit more or being more growth focused, higher growth focused than just your average index fund, you can compound your wealth massively. Just think about that, especially when you're young. That's why I'm so pumped about this stuff. So NETE, we have 15-ish area of our resistance level right now, like these couple of these wicks up to the upside. So that 1575 down towards like 15. We got to pop 15. We break over 15. That's good. There's some crazy price targets out. I think like $30 to $40 for NEAT merger come merger time. So we'll see what happens. But I was in it. I'm personally not in it. I know people who are swinging it. I think it's fine. If you're swinging this one, don't worry too much about it. Buy the dips. I think you're going to be fine. Those who don't know, like their cars, they're merging. Net Element is merging with Mlmd Technologies. The cars are pretty sick. Like, let's be honest. Like they're very sporty electric cars. So that's another EV player here. There's like the more it's funny because like the more you kind of do this, you just see like the more and more of these EV companies. Speaking of BIMI, that's my secret stock. BIMI, I am not in it, but it has actually. I didn't have it on the list because I haven't looked at it close enough. But now that I looked at it last week, and it could be on the radar this week. Not a top player, but look at the same setup. Spiky chart. It's sitting down here, has bottom floor at 150, has a floor here at like 170. It's sitting at 186. I mean, at 186, adding down towards 170, pretty solid to me. If we do get a crazy dip down towards 150, decent still. I think it's fair to add. So have some powder, have some cash available for that. But BIMI is a stock that, again, it kind of fits that. It's first off the China stock. Second off, it's kind of in like your healthcare drug retailer, right? So Webull says a drug retailer on it right there. Healthcare, bio, pharma, whatever you want to call it. Kind of a hot sector, right? We've been seeing all these stocks running up in that biopharma sector. So this is kind of fitting the mold pretty well as well. It's sitting right here, kind of putting an uptrending support, which generally I like to see. So, as much as I would like to get ads down towards like 170, I mean, if I can't get them, and this is showing a decent sign that there's either accumulation going on or we're seeing, it holding up better. So let me look at like the recent volume actually and see. So we kind of have some decent volume coming in. So our average volume, do we have it up here? Let me see if I can pull it up. 2.13 million is the average, right? So we had okay, so we didn't really have that much. Okay, 1.6, so that's nothing crazy. But BIMI is on the, it's kind of crossing the radar yet again. They just take a while. So BIMI, ATIF, I exited ATIF. Not that I don't think it's good. I think it's again, oversold play, has a gap to fill. It's fine, but it may take some time. It's like ATIF drops a press release every single day for the past like 6 months. It seems like, or not every day, but like, once or twice a week. Then when I enter ATIF, well, I was in it before, but when I get in ATIF again, once this spike happened, I got back in, I'm just waiting on it, and there's like, they dropped a press release, I think, but like it got no volume. So sometimes they get attention, sometimes they don't. It's just like, sometimes it's a big time waiting game. XNET is one also I had on the list. Let me just kind of look at XNET. Reason why is because it's kind of dropping off here. So what I can do is I could rearrange and kind of fix this trend line. It's not perfect, but it's decent. So here's kind of my trend line right now. I mean, it's kind of fallen down through the bottom of it, but it's holding up around that level. Again, XNET though is still a stock. I also has Bitcoin related ties, so this one could pop tomorrow. So we're going to be watching that. Unfortunately, where is my other Bitcoin related plays? My MFH has those ties. MFH beautifully did the same thing we've been watching. It bounced off my trend line like perfectly. The problem is that I didn't add. So it came down sub 260 where I have 150 shares just left, but like I was playing it and selling into the spike. So I sold some of those shares into this last spike and I was going to rebuy, and it came down just north of my average. So like 157, I believe, or wherever. Yeah, like 155 maybe. So like right around my average, but I wanted to get it like down below my average, but I just didn't add it. And I think it's going to pop back up towards 3 tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. But if I can get that in, early in the day, potentially down under like 270, I think it's fine. I think that could be a decent move towards 3 plus. Eventually, I think it's going to go bigger, but to like 4, but we'll see. Let's take a look at Rocket. I liked Rocket for the long term. It kind of started to pop. The problem is that I think we had a bigger move in store. The market just was weighing it down a little bit last week, so we might get a bigger move this week. But RKT I think is fine. Under $20 is good ads. I had some in my long-term portfolio, and then I just exited it because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just go into something else that I like. So I think I bought some ARK ETFs just because I think that they had potentially, just better growth potential in my opinion, at least right now. I still think Rocket could be a bigger, have a much bigger move in store, but it was getting boring, so I exited it for now. Let me go back and see. PLTR is one. Let's take a look. PLTR it's like right at that trend line. So let's see how we can extend this trend line because we haven't pulled this guy up in a sec. So it's like, again, it's right this trend line pretty much that it's holding up. So it still looks very bullish until it cracks the trend. And then I would like to see it come down towards potentially the lower 20s would be a spot I personally would like. So that's that. Oh yeah, let's take a look at, so I see, let's take a look at Amazon. For those who know me, I generally like to play with the penny stocks, but I liked Amazon because take a look at this. Here's the chart that I was looking at for Amazon. It's got a solid kind of uptrend developing, and it's holding up very nicely. So Amazon, especially with the market, let's take a look at the futures again. I mean, they're green, so they're still solidly green. So, I mean, this looks like a solid recovery, a really solid recovery play. Appreciate the donation. Thank you. Do you talk about Candy? I'll look at it right now. Let's take a look. KNDI, I am not a huge fan personally. Longevity of this company. That's my take. But again, like I say, all these penny stocks, all these stocks I like to trade. I don't care about the longevity of the company. If I can make money on them now, solid. Small rip at 9. You think it's actually looking decent. So it's putting in higher lows. It might have another shot. EVs may get hot again into the end of the year. Is what I'm anticipating. They've been hot, but if we get a little bit more of that hype rolling back into EVs again, these are hot. And what we're seeing also is kind of higher lows. So we have a 515, we have a 583, then we have a 705, then we have a 773, and then a recent low here on Friday was 811. So it's pulling back, but it's pulling back less each time, it seems like. So what we can also put in is a trend line from here, rough, it's not perfect. We can put in a rough trend line. So that's good. From what we're seeing though, I just don't want to see it putting in lower lows. So you have to ultimately say, hey, what's for my risk management here? I don't want to hold this thing below. I'm willing to hold this thing down towards like, I don't know, $7. Like for example, I'm seeing this little low right here, 701. I don't want to hold KNDI down below 701. Okay, that's my take. If you have that assessed and understood, KNDI comes down towards that level, you add to your position, and it drops below, you're out. But the way that I see a lot of these stocks is that I like to be adding into support levels, because when we get either the pump, the news, or the sector stays red hot, these stocks get rotated. It's like a rotation. They all rotate through, it seems like, right? So this will go again, and it just did. It made a massive run to 17 plus, but it certainly could pop again. So it's got to break back over 10. Over $10 is good. So we want to see this thing holding 7. So I wouldn't want to see it go below 7. Now, of course, could it go below 7 and then bounce off of that level? Either drop a press release? Yes, they could certainly do that. But if it breaks back above 10, just technically speaking, it's potentially going to make a bigger move up. Then you want to look to the left and see these kind of wicks right here. We have some wicks at 1030, and then we have some kind of tops here at 1066-ish. So those are your next levels over 10, but over 10 seems like an area first, because we have a wick right here to 10. We have a wick right back here to 10. So $10 is kind of the area that I want to see first. Okay, let me get back to the chat. The thing is too, I have a separate computer up on the left. That's where the chat is. So that's what I'm looking at if I'm looking to the left. Let's see. All in penny stocks, I forget some again, and say check your records. Up over double on all. So let's see. Did I miss Vero? I'll look at Vero again, because that is one definitely. So they got a $15 PT, right? So price target of $15, I believe, on Friday. Someone was saying for Vero. So this is one that, okay. Now, am I a huge fan of playing something up this much? No, but that said, if it's only gotten like 3 days of a run. So like if we zoom in, right, we really got attention on the 9th. So we got 4.8 million volume. Then on the 10th, 52 million volume. And then on the 11th, right, 28 million volume. So if the volume can stay up over 25 million, now Friday is generally a lower volume day in the market anyway, so I wouldn't expect it to be higher. But if this could stay over 25 million in volume, this has a shot for 10 plus, I think. I personally don't play into like the hype of this stuff. So not now, could it go 10 plus very easily? Yes. It could. With the way the market is, a lot of stocks that get price target upgrades or get these crazy price targets, they magnet to those levels like almost. I want to say almost immediately, but they magnet to those levels like very, very fast in this market that we're in. So could I see it happening? Yes. Would I be a huge fan? No, I would like this thing down lower, personally, for me. But again, that's just my take. Let's see, LCA. Let's take a look at LCA. And sorry if I miss. I'm sorry if I miss some of the chats, guys. There's a lot of stuff. I'm looking at stuff. I'm trying to give my thoughts on what I'm seeing, and so I'm not always going to catch every single chat, every single message. Let's see. Okay, LCA. So LCA hit 25, just over 25. Now this is a stock that I'm very long on. So Golden Nugget Online Gaming, I am very long because we're seeing more and more legalizations of online gambling and sports betting and stuff like that across more and more states. So we're seeing that groundwork, that kind of foundation is there. Their revenue numbers are up, right? So I'm looking at that stuff. Everything leads me to believe that I seen what happened with DraftKings. You're seeing what happened with Penn. Everything leads me to believe that this is a stock that is undervalued, right? Well, at least will be of higher value in the next year, potentially, 6 months, year, 2 years. Who knows how long it takes for more legalizations of this stuff? I don't know. But either way, I'm just long. So I want to see it holding up in the 20s. So I wouldn't want to see this thing dropping below 20 again. The merger's on the 18th, so I think it's Friday. So we'll see what happens by Friday. But, you know, there's a lot of volatility in these stocks up into that merger date. Ideally, you would like to see us sell the news or sell the merger. The merger happens. We're all good. This ticker symbol changes to GNOG from LCA to GNOG. And then the stock pulls back towards like $20 or sub $20. You grab a dip, and then within 2 weeks, you're back up over 25. That's what I would like to see. That's at least just my kind of rough take on it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But for me, I know people who get caught up in like calls or something like that, and I feel bad, but at the same time, but I like it right here. I mean, I'm saying I'm sitting here under $12 where I bought. I'm good. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to skip you 13 times. Mlmd. I will do that one. I'll look at Mlmd. My bad. Okay, Mlmd. So it's starting to kind of put its nose up over that $2. So this is good. This one has some range. Again, it's one of those right in the biotech sector. So this is a hot sector. This stock, if you've been in, you're looking good. If you're not in, I still think you probably have a lot of range to the upside. It hasn't really gone like, okay, we've made a pretty big move from a couple weeks ago when we were like 150. So yeah, you're up decently off of that 150. So yeah, your risk is a little bit higher than what I would ideally want it to be. But that said, still, this is sitting here under, around $2 with, we have this 200 SMA at 240, room up. We have prior spikes up here. If we get news, if we get something like that, this thing has room, to hitting these levels. So 275 and then looks like 350 and then potentially a gap fill towards 475. I don't want to jump ahead, but it has range. So these are stocks where if news finds these stocks, where I'm not saying, there's ways to kind of understand, hey, there's data due, there's this, so you can dive further into it. I don't specifically have anything written down, but this looks good. I mean, does look really nice. And if you do have news coming, which it seems like it hasn't been a while since we've had a real, prime news spike, this is prime for a big run. SCKT. I know a lot of people have been talking about this one. SCKT, I've seen enough comments briefly, so let's take a look. Socket Mobile. So this guy has what we see was like a 230-ish area of support. It's holding up. Well, we had this little wick down right here, but we had this 50 SMA that's really kind of pushing up. So it looks like the 50 SMA is trying to be this guy, trying to be like that support, that's kind of uptrending support. So right now we have a solid 2 kind of 32. So let's see. It looks good. It's up a lot though. So after hours it popped a lot. After hours it popped to 359. So it's already up here. Yeah. Okay. This is why you got to look at the 4-hour chart for some of these. So look at the 4-hour chart and see the spike. So we look back to prior spikes. Oh wait, one sec. Look at the prior spikes. We have range to 450. So this could be your gapper candidate. So how do you have a gap? So this stock finished strong in the after hours. It finished up 35% after hours, and it finished strong with volume coming in at the end. This is a gapper candidate. So I have a video going over like the overnight gap trade. This is an idea for like a tomorrow morning. This thing can make a run quickly at like 4 a.m. when pre-market opens from 360 to 450 plus easily like that, and then it can come right back down. But it's a gapper candidate for sure. Price targets for HEPA. I want to see $2 first. I'm going to look at AKBA and then we'll go over risk management because there's a lot of, that's a very touchy area, which a lot of people need to understand. AKBA looks good too. This is a stock that's sitting down here, $2 support level. Okay, we're up a little bit from where it was, but again, still, if you have a little bit more higher risk tolerance, whereas if this thing does come back down towards like 2 and you're willing to add to your position down there, fine, that you're looking good. But if we get over 415, $4, look at this gap fill. If we get news, positive news, this gap will be, now I'm not going to say this gap's going to get filled, but this gap, a good chunk of this gap could get, filled. So we can make a big run to $5 plus potentially on news. So I like that. I miss the days you look at all the comments. The thing is, it's other, oh yeah, psychedelic plays. I'll look at that too. It's awesome, but at the same time, I get it. So I don't know, maybe we can do something. We'll see what I can do. I'm going to try to do more live streams like during the weeks. So I know the thing with Sunday nights, Sunday nights are just like prime. That's when you get a lot of people who are like getting ready for the week. Everyone's coming on. Everyone's want to give their ideas, which is awesome. So there's tons of ideas in the chat, but I understand, you can't, it's tough. And I don't want you guys to think that you have to donate for me to see it, because those pop up bigger. I don't want you to think that you have to do that. I appreciate you guys so much for doing so. You don't have to, but I'm trying to go back through. So psychedelic plays. Let me look at the one that I am in. I will pull up my psychedelic play. It's actually hilarious because if I pull it up, PSYC. So PSYC is my psychedelic pick. I'm looking for this thing for a potential 10-cent target would be my level. I think this is going to have more potential just in the coming weeks and months. I don't think it's just going to be like a quick. This is an OTC play, but psychedelics are kind of heating up with Oregon and stuff like that, right? So these are hot. So I bought some of this a little bit lower, so I'm already up. These, you have to be careful because you don't want to be going in large. These are not stocks to be going in large. You can make an absolute killing if you're going in with the same sizing of like a normal stock, which now leads me into kind of some risk management ideas, because I know it's a touchy subject. So that's the thing. I'm in this guy. We'll see what happens. It's speculative. I just have some shares in my TD Ameritrade account that I just max it out. It's a super small account. So I said, hey, let's just see what happens. If it goes crazy, I make a few $100 and I move on to the next one. Now, risk management. Let me just use a quick example. So HEPA is a perfect example for me. I'm not in huge. So again, I am managing kind of my plays. When it comes to risk management, here's how I do it. Now, everyone's different depending upon your strategies, your style, what you're trading. Completely different. So the first thing for me is that I started off trading options. Now, by no means, right, was I super successful doing so. I made some money. I lost some money. I had major ups and downs with options. For me, mentally, that was not fun. I couldn't mentally kind of get over the fact that, hey, I can't predict the next winning option trade more than like 50% of the time. Maybe I can, and when I found through technical analysis and through kind of just getting a better feel for the overall markets and kind of sector rotation and stuff like that, was I can predict the move in a stock more likely than not, right? So more than 50% of the time. And with a lot of penny stocks, I can predict the move very nicely, like 65+% of the time. The problem is then, how do you manage your risk? Are you selling too early? Are you making enough money? Are you scaling out properly on the way up? Or and on your losses, right? Are you getting caught in offerings? Are you getting caught in too many offerings where the stock drops like 50% and getting crushed? Are you in too heavy? So I've learned kind of that, hey, I like shares better than options, number one. And then number two is I've liked now less day trades where I'm trading something that's already got momentum, where I don't like trading something that's up 30, 40, 100%, 200% on the day with fresh news. Could the stock go 1,000%? Yes. But to me, that's more of a gamble than buying something towards support levels, right? For example, HEPA. This is HEPA. I like this one still. So it came down, had an offering. Came down, I think the offering's closed. Came down to 150. So for me, I took my first starter. So I bought 400 shares at 155.9. So 156, right? I would love to get more, but I bought first 400 shares there. Then what my plan was, now for the size of my account too, here's how I do it. Everyone's different. My max position for one stock in this account, which is at $21,000, is $2,000. So 10% of my account is the max size I will go in. And of course, that scales up as the account goes up, that scales. But so I buy my first third at that level. Then I was planning on buying another third of my max position. So divide that 2,000 into 3, right? Into 3. I'm going to buy it at this 125. So I look at the chart. I say, hey, we also came down towards this 125 back here, and that was in April. Now, do we come down that low? Probably not. But I said, hey, if it does come down, that's how I'm going to manage my risk. I look at this stock. I played it before. It's had news before. It's spiked before. I know it has that potential. I know it's a stock that, hey, worst case scenario, I shouldn't lose too much money on the stock. There's definitely a way to manage my position and get out of this one for a profit or for at least a break even if things go against me. Then I add my second size there, and then I look to grab here at $1 is the lowest I'm going to go. I am not going to hold this stock below $1, so I will add my last chunk of shares at around $1 or the low $1 level. So that's how I manage my risk. What does that put my average at? That puts my average right around that 125 or so, maybe 126, 130-ish area. That's where my average is. What am I risking? I'm risking about 30 cents to the downside. If we break under $1, I'm out. 30 cents to the downside. I look to the upside. I say, hey, first, if I had an average at 130, my first target here would be $2, and then which is 70 cents to the upside. So it's a better reward than the risk immediately. But ideally, I want to see this gap get filled back up to 215. So my price target first on HEPA is $2 because $2 will be a natural area of resistance. Every whole number level is a natural area. Then 215, that's the gap fill. That's what I want to see next. So that's kind of my thought process on how I will manage my risk across most of my trades. That's generally how it works. Sometimes I'll be adding in halves. I'll be like, I'm going to add half position here, half here. Sometimes it'll be fourths. Sometimes it'll be fifths. Sometimes it's tenths. It depends. But generally, I see 3 easy to identify areas of support on the chart. I'm looking to add at those levels. And so, unfortunately, in a sense, I didn't have as many shares as I wanted to. I would love to have gotten more shares of HEPA as it's starting to move up. I still think $2 plus is in the cards. I would love to get more, but I didn't get more. That's fine with me. Based on my risk management, based on I know that this trade as of right now, I'm already up 20 cents on it. I'm already in the green. It's a very low stress trade from right now. I'm potentially waiting on news. If we get news, this thing could go hard. So I like that. All right, let me go back and look at some of the messages that I missed. Sorry. Trading over 20. That's awesome. And I used to be never not had a positive year. And that's awesome. Ttcf, yes. Let's look at Ttcf. Ttcf. Oh, it looks solid. I mean, this is going to probably have some resistance, maybe at that 50 SMA. We'll see. But it's broken back, or it kind of reversed off of this level. I thought maybe around the $16 level would hold. It never, it's never always perfect. I wish it did. It didn't. It came down towards 14. That's where we kind of held. We had some areas of consolidation back here, so I can see why that held. And now it's reversing. This is also Ttcf I bought for the long term. I don't know exactly where my average is at. I think my average might be like up where it's kind of at. I think I started buying it back in here. So it might not be the best average. But that said, this is a stock that I'm bullish on for the long term. I'm not going to be selling this one anytime soon. So could it go tomorrow? Yeah. Could it also go into next year much more? Yeah. I think that's at least my take. ICNAF, much better weed stock. There's a lot of let's look at ICNAF. Where is ICNAF? There's a lot of weed plays I think that are going to be big players in the next couple of weeks, months. I'm bullish on the sector really into next year, so I want to see what happens into next year. But a lot of weed plays will be definitely on my radar. SNDL is one that. Okay, let me pull it up. SNDL. So here it is. This is why I think it's actually looking nice. SNDL has support here around 45 cents, but it's breaking out of this downtrend right on the daily chart. So we're breaking out of this downtrend and it's popping out. Of course, we have that 180-day extension to fit or to meet the NASDAQ minimum $1 bid requirement. So the stock's at 50 cents. They have like 6 months, 180 days to get the stock for 10 days over $1, right? So how do you do that? Well, you can go about that a couple different ways. You can go about that either news, the stock price gets popped up on news, the sector gets hot, and so the sector gets hot, the stock runs, right, with other stocks, Tilray, there's so many. We just talked about some of them, ACB, CGC. Watch those stocks for the overall sector kind of sentiment. And then can you do a reverse stock split? Yeah. So they might do a reverse stock, but I don't want to be holding it when they announce that, but it could certainly do that as well. So that's my take. Yeah, Hyliion unfortunately is kind of lame. I thought we'd see a bigger pop on Hyliion lately, but it's fallen through support. So I don't want to be like saying this as, I'm out, Hyliion's done. I exited my Hyliion in the long-term portfolio just because I haven't been seeing what I wanted to see. I thought we'd get kind of a bigger move here. And there's been a decent amount of, not super negative, but there's been a decent amount of like neutral to like not ideal news and kind of attention on Hyliion lately, just from what I've been seeing on social media, which generally is not a good sign. Could the stock go the other way? Yes. I exited because I saw a value other places, so I felt comfortable maybe more like in some of the ARK funds. So I just say, hey, I'm going to put my money there for now. For those who are still in it, I think it's not. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's over. It's done. But I want to see more developments out of the company personally. SPCE I actually bought some of that a couple weeks back in the long-term portfolio, and I bought that where did I buy? I bought it around like 25 maybe or so. It's up beautifully. I think this is going to make a run up towards these highs. I think it's going to break all-time highs in the next couple of weeks or months. I'm long, just holding it, not worried about it. Like I get the notice. Like so, what I have for like the Webull is my short-term, like penny stock mostly, or short-term trades generally. Then I have like a Robinhood where I have just long-term investments, not super worried about it, either cash or just long-term swings, stuff like that. If I ever need to take from it, I can. And then I have an IRA. So this is something that's in my Robinhood that if I ever need to liquidate, I can. And I'm not I'm not worried about, selling, the tax repercussions. I understand that, yes, it makes sense to hold stocks for over a year, yes. But if I want to sell it, I need the money for something, or I want to move it to something else, I can do so, and I'm not worried about that. But that's my take on it. I'm buying it and I forgot about it. Like I literally get the notifications, like it's up 5% today. Awesome. Like that's how I just see it. Like that's my take on that at least. Okay. Sorry if I'm missing more stuff. KXIN scares me. I've been seeing enough people talking about that in the comments. So what do we got? So KXIN actually is not terrible because technically speaking, because it's sitting at that 50 SMA. So if we look at the chart, prior spikes, so it has potential range. 50 SMA is generally a good bounce point for stocks that we're trying to find support. We don't know where it's going to be. 50 SMA, 50 period simple moving average, or the MA50 on like Webull, for example, the MA50, which is sitting right around that $4 or so, upper threes, low fours. That's decent. If it can't hold that level, then look for it to come back down towards like $3. So that would be my next level. So if it can't hold this 50 SMA, look down towards 3. So that's at least my take. Just joined the stream. I have not talked about SQ. So, okay, so for those who are just joining, I appreciate you guys so much. If you wouldn't mind hitting the thumbs up button. Our record for the stream is like 300 likes. So if we can break that today, that would be absolutely insane. I appreciate you guys so much for doing so. But I primarily, and I'm gonna go over SQ though. I primarily trade penny stocks. So if you see me going over like stocks that you would never touch, that's just primarily what I trade on a short-term basis. I also have long-term holdings that I just kind of buy and hold. I forget. But most of the penny stocks I trade, I don't hold them long-term. They're quick, in and out, couple days, couple weeks max. That's it. Mostly swing trades. I'll take a few day trades here and there, but ideally I do better with swings. I've audited myself many times now, and every single time I do so, I'm like, this week I could have made so much more money. It's just I took these day trades and they drained my account by a couple $100 or whatever it was. Not drained the account, but they held me back from making more and compounding my gains faster. So I'm really kind of auditing myself to swings. Only day trades I'll take are either trades that I say, hey, that news looks really good and I'll take it and it looks legit, or it's something that I'm watching and I can get in super early, or I can get in like a huge dip. So that's my take. SQ looks just absolutely insane from where it was. Absolutely insane run from the beginning of the pandemic, right? Insane. It's massively up. But in terms of tomorrow, we just hit an all-time high, right? We hit that 222. We want to look at is futures. So futures are green. So futures are green, which is going to tell me that SQ may have a nice week. Now, also for those who are just joining on, my thoughts for at least right now are we have a bunch of things. Vaccine priced in. I think it was priced into the overall market to a degree. On top of that, we have stimulus. So let's see what happens with stimulus. We get stimulus going into the end of the week. That should be a bullish move. That should be a good sign for the overall markets, keeping them propped up at least to the end of the year. MMEDF. Appreciate the donation. Let's take a look at MMEDF. MMEDF. Now this guy is on a tear. So this thing, I believe, is also kind of a psychedelic company, right? I believe. This is on a massive run. So personally for me, I really don't like touching stuff up this high. But that said, it's getting the volume. The volume is coming in. So we had 20 million in volume on Friday. If we can kind of match or go on pace for similar to that, I would see the momentum continuing. If not, we got tied up around 3. So that's some areas of consolidation. So if it pulls back, maybe towards $3 is a better dip buy. Other than that, though, we have consolidation down in here between like that $1 or between $2. and this like 150. That's an area of consolidation. Now, I don't think it's going to come down that far right now, right away, but a lot of times you'll see stocks that are running up massively like this. Personally, I don't touch them, but I think these stocks, psychedelics in general, are hot. So the one that I'm in is PYSC or PSYC, right? Let's see, where is it? Yeah, here it is. PSYC is the psychedelic OTC play that I am personally in. So I'm bullish on these stocks. I think they're all going to have more runs. So if MMEDF goes, this is probably going to follow. Now, it's actually funny. I believe this is a company that's super interesting because I was contacted by like a PR company, and they said they were like contacting me, and this is something to also be aware of in just general watching people's videos. If they are sponsored to make a certain video, be careful of that stuff because it's a thing. They contacted me saying, hey, can you make a top 3 OTC penny stock video? And then here are the 3 stocks. Or I had to ask them, what are the stocks? Like, I'm not just going to make a random video for you. And they were going to pay. But I was like, no, because I can't personally like stand behind these stocks. I can't, stand behind the companies. But this is one of them. So this is getting social media attention because I remember them contacting me. So there's videos out there talking about this, which is in this day and age, it's a factor. It's a factor to be to understand. On top of we're seeing a lot of we're seeing the Oregon, we're seeing psychedelics, we're seeing this stuff heat up. So this set the stage for me. If you guys keep spamming the chat, I'm not gonna respond, or I'm gonna have to just like stop you from commenting or blocking. Because it's not worth it. If you want, I know I can't get to everybody's comments, but if you put like a legitimate comment instead of just the ticker symbol, there's a higher chance that I will actually read that. Now, put the ticker symbol in all caps or put the $ in front of the ticker symbol, but that definitely will help me see it better in the chat. And when I look over to the side, that's when I'll see it better. So Veru, we talked about earlier, but I'll briefly touch on it again. It's getting attention. So if the volume stays over like 25 million on Monday, I think it can certainly continue its move up. Personally, I'm not a huge fan. I'd like to see it come back down, maybe towards like $5 for a better entry, but that's just me. Let's see. Do you remember what time? Okay, yeah. Done a TQQQ or 3X. I actually have gotten screwed. So SPX, I'll explain my thoughts on this guy. So SPXS, right, is the 3X bear ETF for the S&P. Now it's getting killed because this is we're seeing the market's kind of pushing up. The only problem with CRBP CRBP is on my list, so I can touch on that one too. The problem with this is that if you do the math onto a lot of these like 3X ETFs, the market, what could happen is that the market could like legitimately stay flat, and these ETFs could go down on you. Like, so you would think, oh, the market is this, like I was in SPXS, right? And I was saying, hey, the market's going to go back down. This is like back in like the early spring or like the late spring, like June time period. I was like, hey, the market's going to go back down. I'm going to buy some SPXS. And you can probably find the videos when I talked about it too in like the weekly updates. But I was in it for like a little bit over like a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, maybe a month total. And the market actually was the same price, like SPY, for example, the S&P 500 was the same price that it was when I took my initial position, because it was like kind of up and down, but it was the same price, but my position was down like 10% or something like that. And I was like sitting here, I had a pretty hefty position size because I felt pretty adamant that the market was going to go down. And it just, so that's kind of the risk with a lot of these 3 times, 2 times ETFs. Either you take them for day trades or very short-term trades. So if you think the market's going up, you day trade it. If you, like, for example, what I would do is if you're watching SPY, if you're watching SPY, right, or QQQ, whatever you're going to watch, and you're watching, let's say, like, look at the 5-minute chart on SPY, and you see a knife. When we say a knife, you see a pretty hefty or hard drop to the downside, and you're like, this thing just went down, like QQQ or SPY went down 0.5% in like the past 5 minutes. You know, that's where you can take a scalp recovery type of play, or you think it's an overreaction. That's where you can take some of those 3 times, bull or bear ETFs and play the recovery. That's how I would do it. If you get a pretty big oversold kind of period, play it on the reversal. For example, if you're watching SPY, I just don't like to play them, to be honest. But if you're watching SPY like down in here and you start to see that we put a bottom in You could buy it up here potentially and ride it up for like a week or two. You could do it. I would be sticking to more so day trades on those things. Personally, that's just my take on it. PFE. Let's take a look at PFE. My thoughts on PFE is that I think this is a $50 plus stock into next year. The only problem is that the price, I think it's priced in. So I think we got the vaccine approval. That was all priced in. So we had this move from like 36 to 43. That was your big move of the vaccine approval. Now the approval happens. It's kind of a sell the news. We'll see what happens tomorrow, ideally, because we got the official emergency use authorization approved post market hours on Friday. So that's ultimately going to be, we'll see what happens. But that's my take on that. And now Crbp is our like penny stock play. So I like it because if you just take a look at this chart, oversold chart, news likes to find an oversold chart. We see it all the time, holding up that 50 SMA around 125. So it's looking pretty decent. Or 120 is a 50 SMA. So I like that. And we have range. So this thing gets back up over, if we get news, or this thing gets a nice little, gets more attention, which I think it may, because we saw a little bit of an increase in volume on 5 million in volume on Friday, which this bad boy averages, let's see, where is it? About 5 million. So, okay, so that's that. So we have a move up. If we get over 250, massive gap to fill. Now, I don't believe this stock will recover back to 9, but if we get up into this gap or we get news, this stock has a lot of potential. That's kind of how I see it. GNUS is one that we are actually, just because I see it now, this is one that I've talked about, I think, on past streams. Here it is. It's struggling right now to really reclaim that 160. If it can really hold above that 160, I want to see it get above, because we've been seeing like the past 4 days, it's gotten above each day, but it's also had its times below, right? It's come back below. So it's putting in higher lows. It's looking good overall. But I want to see GNUS really push back up. And when I say really push back on up, I'm not saying GNUS is going to be a $2 plus stock tomorrow. I'm saying that, hey, this is looking like a decent recovery type of play back on the upside towards $2. Could be the next target. If it can really reclaim that 160 and hold above 160, that $2 is the next shot for GNUS. That's AMD. Been steady lately. Let's take a look at AMD. AMD. Oh yeah, we've been talking about this one. So we have a solid support here down in the low 70s, like 73 or so is your support for AMD, which I think is fine. Outside of that, though, we have resistance up around that 94, 95 level. So it's kind of just consolidating in this range. Here's your kind of rough range for AMD. And we're in this range. So we're up at the top of the range. Now, it looks like it wants to pop through. It's trying to get close. It's kind of how like Bitcoin has been feeling lately. It's like it's up there, just hasn't really broken through that 20,000. So we really want to get there. But that said, if the market stays green, that's going to certainly help. So let's go back to futures really quick. They're green. So futures are still green. So unless we have negative news overnight or tomorrow morning, I would expect the market to be green tomorrow, at least at the open, and then we'll see what happens. The market will probably be extremely volatile next week because we have stimulus on the line. And with stimulus, that also affects a lot of other. Not only is it going to affect recovery stocks because there's potential airline money bailout. So airline stocks, I see JetBlue. So JetBlue, we can take a look at that. I'm seeing, some of these, recovery stocks being talked about in the chat. I mean, JetBlue back to, pre-pandemic is over $20. So if JetBlue recovers back to over 20, back towards $20, I'm not saying it has to get $20, but if we get airline bailout money, it'll spike. It'll get a spike. Vaccine news, I think, is priced in to a degree, but maybe we'll see these stocks really running tomorrow. So we may wake up tomorrow morning to all of a sudden airline stocks gapping up, cruise line stocks gapping up, a bunch of the other stocks gapping up. We'll see what happens, but that's at least my take. And there's more room to the upside, I think, for a lot of these stocks. Now, for those of you, yes, I am in some option plays. I'll actually go over those right now. Quickly. So this is actually an opportunity. So maybe not now. I'm sure you can still get more of a recovery, but JetBlue leading into options, what you could have done is if you look into like some of the option chains, like let's say I was to go out to like June 2021, so the summer, I want to buy some like $14 calls, or let's say I want to buy $15 calls on JetBlue for 2021. So my anticipation, let's say I'm looking at the charts and I say, hey, JetBlue, I think it's going to recover back up towards, $18. I think it could go to $20, but I think it'll get to 18. based on kind of the trend that we're on. And 18 puts us like right, I'll draw a line at 18. So 18 puts us right around here. Okay, I think it can certainly hit 18. Reasonable area to hit. I'm watching JetBlue, potential bailout money, recovery in general. Okay. Now I go back to the option chain. I say, okay, if I'm going to buy a $15 call, that means that call will have at $15, JetBlue at $18, a $15 call will have an intrinsic value of $3. So if the move happens sooner rather than later, right before June, I'm going to make more money. But if this doesn't happen until June and I still think JetBlue gets to 18 by June, either way, right, I'm looking at the cost of the call. It's costing me under $2.50. So at least I'm going to make 50 cents on the call, which is a decent percentage. But if it happens sooner and JetBlue gets towards 20, if JetBlue goes to $20, now I have an intrinsic value of 5. My call's doubled. So here's how you can leverage a smaller amount of money, which leads me into my option trades, a smaller amount of money to make a much larger percentage gain. Whereas if you were just to buy shares of JetBlue, number one, you have to tie up a lot more capital in JetBlue right now for a move back to 20. And what's the percentage? The percentage is get if JetBlue goes to like $20. So that's that. But the actual calls, the options that I am currently in, one of them is Home Depot. So Home Depot, I like it because it held up around this 260. This is kind of a range, this 260 to 292 or 293. So I see us at the bottom of the range for Home Depot, looking for overall market to potentially be green. And I bought calls for January. So generally, for calls, I would generally like to play a little bit longer out. I'm not looking to play something that's super volatile. So I bought some January 15th calls, I believe, for Home Depot. So I'm looking for Home Depot to make a move off of this low in really this week. If it can't make a huge move this week, I'll scale out of some of those calls. I should be around break even on them as of right now. As long as the market stays green and Home Depot stays either solid or pushes up a little bit, I should be fine on those. So I have Home Depot calls. I'm anticipating, because it's trading in a range. So for me, I see Home Depot in a range at the bottom of the range. Pretty good opportunity to buy, in my opinion. And I gave myself over a month. So they're like January 15th expiration. So I still have, from today, I still have over 1 month for Home Depot to make a decent move back up to 280 or so is where I want to see it. It gets up kind of close to that level. I'm happy. That's that. Outside of that, I'm at FSR, is Fisker Automotive, or Fisker Inc. actually. So I bought some calls. They had a pretty big sell-off. I think it's an overreaction to the downside. This stock is pretty volatile, so understand that. But it's an EV player. They don't have production until 2022, but I think we're going to get some more positive press. We're getting more attention. We're getting more price targets. We're getting more analyst coverage on Fisker in general. That'll be a good thing. So I'm anticipating, I actually bought calls for May, so I have plenty of time on these. Plenty of time. But that said, I'm looking for a bounce back up into the upper teens, back to towards like 20 plus. I see Fisker as $25 plus in the next couple of months. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the market says the same thing. But that's that. So that's what I have. I have those calls. And what else? Oh, I have Tilray calls. RY. I'm anticipating a bigger move and a lot of weed names into next year. So I just bought super cheap. They are kind of expensive, but we'll see what happens. I might average down. I'm going to look. Well, I may have to adjust my position on that this week. I'm going to reconsider that potentially. But Tilray is sitting here at this trend line for me, so I still see it fine. And it could drop below for sure, but we'll see what happens. I'll be adding to my position if it does dip further, to be honest. I have an $8 call on Tilray into like the summer. I forget what date it is. I think I talked about it in Saturday's video. But an $8 call on Tilray. And so what that essentially is, my anticipation is that Tilray makes a shot to 12 plus. I'm thinking like potentially further, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So I want to get one more. I don't want to have too much. I just want to have two of them, just kind of like lottery plays, but also plenty of time on them. So if I'm anticipating a move in a bunch of lead names in, let's say, like January, February, then, I got plenty of time on my hands for the expiration of the option. And if Tilray goes to $10, right, this call, let's say Tilray goes to $12, this call doubles in value. So I make 100% on the call. I think it can go for more, but that's my take. Let's see. FRSX, I know people have been talking about that one. Disney calls a year out. Okay, let's look at Disney really quick while we're on the topic of a bunch of these. I think Disney calls a year out. Sure, that's one thing. But personally, I would be buying, if you're going to buy them, buy on a red day. Don't buy buying these Disney calls right now is not a good idea. Personally, my take. Buy it when it's red. Buy it when no one wants it. That's how I see it. If FSR drops more, I'm buying shares, selling puts like an animal. If FSR drops more, I have a decent amount of shares, but I will probably be adding to my option position or my longer term option positions personally. Left a sub, nice, appreciate it. First time here. What do you think about HIMX? HIMX. Oh, there it is. Oh, okay, it's consolidating. So what we see, this could be a beautiful bull flag. So let's see. So we have we have the pulls. Here's your pull right to the upside, and here's your consolidation flag pattern. So I want to see this thing breaking out either to new highs, or if it does crack down below the 650 level, it could come to the downside. So if it does do that, maybe down towards $6 could be a better entry. Down towards this consolidation, maybe 575 could be a better dip buy. That's that. But appreciate you joining the stream. Got some calls, 12 and $7. I mean, this is looking like a bullish move in my opinion. So I don't know enough about it to say, hey, like, oh, I would be going all in here. I love it. But we look back at the weekly chart, has range to the upside, looks good to me. I mean, this thing is making a big push with the bull flag potential setup. I like it. So what was up with GLSI? So GLSI had breast cancer news. I believe the press release read complete remission after 5 years. So you see something like that, that is significant. Now, I don't know about the details into that, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people digging deeper into that, saying, hey, this is BS, or hey, this is legit. So we're going to see how that kind of goes, but that's what happened. So when you see something like that, you kind of go crazy. It went crazy. Let's see. That's what we saw. Whatever day it was, like Wednesday. ACST. This is coming back down. It got its kind of pump, right? It's got its pop up here to this 42. Now what I want to see is if it comes back down and kind of holds up some support here, maybe 25 cents, if not down towards like the low 20s. That's where we kind of have this 50 SMA. So it held up in the past. So it looks good. It's got range. This is an example of a gap fill, right? So we have a gap from like 28 cents up towards like 65 cents. We didn't fill the whole gap, but we got a decent chunk. So you can still capitalize on a decent chunk. You just don't want to be buying it up here because you're already in the gap. Your downside risk here is more. Now, there's no one saying it has to get filled. It can get filled. There's no one saying it has to, though. Airbnb. I think Airbnb was, I typed it in wrong. Airbnb. I think it was a little overpriced once it started trading. But that said, we got a dip down to 135. I mean, I'm not someone who's super interested in Airbnb stock right now. I want to see it settle down personally. So that's my take. I would I want to let the chart settle down, give it some more time. Bull flags don't apply to biotech, period. Well, like every pattern, it's it could help. Doesn't, again, everything is going to have, so if it doesn't apply to biotech, period, in your experience, then there's going to help. So maybe that doesn't mean anything. It could just come right back down. Let's see. Question is, how do you find all the stocks in the first place to trade? I can analyze the stock but I always see people talking about stocks I've never heard of. What I have a video from a couple days back last week, how to find biotech is too volatile and trades way too. Okay, so then biotech plays, yes, if it's already up a lot, personally I'm not a fan, but maybe you have a consolidation pattern for a move up. I don't know. I'm just personally not a fan of playing something that's up that much. But that said, what was I talking about? You want to pull that back? Imagine if everybody hit the like button right now. Well, if everyone hit the like button right now, we'd have a record number of likes, but it's up to you guys to do so. I found a cool stream. Well, I appreciate you for finding the stream. Biotech is poison. Well, right now, we are seeing biotech on fire, so that's where everyone's hanging, at least. Nice stream to go to bed to. Awesome. So for those of you guys, East Coast time, 9:30, and understand I am currently Central time, so we're sitting here in Texas. So those of you in Texas, shout out to you guys. Appreciate it. We're making plays with the SPAC mergers. Yeah, yes and no. I'm not a huge. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of SPACs. HCAC I like a lot. I personally let them merge and let them wait. My take. I'm in a bunch of other ones that I've been in for a while. I'm kind of taking a step back on those for right now, but they've been hot, so I nothing against them. Oh yeah, I was talking about how someone asked how do I find them. So I have a video on the channel if you want to go back and check it out. How to find the next 100% penny stock runner. Because if you guys are new here, that's the stocks that I generally trade. But again, I'll trade anything, right? I'll trade anything that fits what kind of fits the risk reward that makes sense for me at the time. But a lot of the stocks that I'm doing pretty well with right now that I've kind of found my groove is penny stocks. And so I have a video going over what I use. I use a bunch of sources. So number one, I'll use a finviz.com scanner. So like you can go to, let's pull it up, finviz.com. Here it is. You can literally go into their screener. There's a lot of information you can sort by, mess around here, and just have some fun. Like there's a lot of stuff you can sort by signal, all this cool stuff. On top of a Finviz scanner, I'll use social media, but I will be very careful on how I do that. So I am certainly I'm someone who, when I, early on, I got caught up in following somebody with, large followings. And when you do that, you call them pumpers, whatever you want to call them, you run the risk of buying something, not knowing what you're buying, number one, and buying something too high. So the risk reward doesn't make sense, not knowing when to take profits and getting crushed on either an offering or the sell-off. Everybody sells and they're out. So there's that. But I use social media as a tool to find a lot of other plays. You start following people that you start following people who have unique charts. You find people who, not just your pumpers. Although I do follow plenty of people who have large followings because they move stocks. So if I'm looking for something and I'm trying to find an answer to why this stock popped up so much, I'll go to Twitter, I'll type in it in the search bar, $, ticker symbol, and I'll see, oh yeah, here's a tweet about it. Someone saying I'm loading up now, and then you see, oh, they got 100,000 followers, so they got 65,000 followers. Makes sense why the stock's up 10% in the past 20 minutes. So like I get ideas from that. So now, okay, I'm not going to buy that stock, but I'm going to write that stock down. What sector is it? See what happens. Log it. I have a full trading journal as well that I use on Excel, and I log all the stocks I trade. I'm going to do that tomorrow morning. I should do it every Friday, but I do it, after the week's over. I go back and I log all the trades that I made the past week, and I log the sector, what happened, how I fared, what did I do, what was I thinking, all that stuff. So I can refer back to that because a lot of these stocks repeat the same process over and over again. They pop, they come back down, they develop some support, and that's when I'll rebuy them again. Boom. So it's the same process, and then on top of that stuff, it's really coming down to just, again, you can do further research. So all those things make sense, and then it just comes down to just messing around. You start seeing the top gainers for the day. You start seeing the top losers. What's up with some of these? You start just poking around. And before you know, as you kind of get more involved, you start getting more stocks on your radar. You see, oh, yeah, I know I've heard this stock before. Let me look into it. And that's kind of how it goes. So it takes some time. But that is that. Plug Power. I believe Jim Cramer likes Plug Power from what I last heard from him on it. It's looking decent. I mean, it's looking decent. I want to see it pop him over 30. We'll see what happens. But what I'm going to do, guys, is I know I haven't gotten to your questions. I'm sorry, but take a peek at your portfolio. Stay really far away, guys. I'm going to do a video in the coming weeks about my long-term portfolio. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing huge because I'm 22, right? I'm still young. I don't have obviously it's, the idea here for me is that I have a different risk tolerance than most people. So I'm going to be more kind of willing to take risks. But I'll do a video on my long-term investments and what I'm in and what I like and stuff like that in the future. How many penny stocks am I in? Let me go and check it out. So positions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14. That's probably too many, to be honest with you. I don't want to be in that many stocks. But that said, I see opportunity with them. So that's what I'm in. And a lot of them are hot and they're bottomed out plays. So I don't see too much risk to the downside. But that's that. Again, if the market is looking rocky, now penny stocks, I wouldn't say Kramer likes it, stay away. Yeah. If penny stocks in general, right, like super volatile, right? So for those, if the market's down, you can see the market could be down like 0.5%, and like your penny stocks could be down like 2% each, which isn't that much remove for those stocks specifically. But that said, they could hurt your portfolio if you're in a lot of them. So it's you have to understand kind of what you're in at least, and understand your risk tolerance, risk management, have cash available. I'm like half cash, so a lot of the stocks I just would like to get dips because I want to be able to add and load up into heavier positions. So that's my take on that. What I'm going to do, guys, we've been going for almost 2 hours, so it's about time to start wrapping things up. Usually end at like 8:30, so I went a little bit longer than I usually do, at least 8:30 Central Time. So I appreciate you guys so much for jumping in. I am using Webull. That's what I'm using. The broker that I'm using is Webull. I see the questions there. Cover ADTX. ADTX, I am out, but if it comes down towards 2, I'll be buying back. That's my take on ADTX. So this is using Webull. You can still get 4 free stocks. It's my shameless plug, like always. I use the platform every day. Most people who promote it don't use the platform. I actually do. So hopefully you take advantage of that. You see how I'm using it. Hopefully if you have any questions about it, please leave them in the comments section of my other videos, chat, stuff like that. I'll be doing these live streams every single Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's the goal. If I ever miss one, I will let you know ahead of time in the community tab of the channel. Appreciate you guys so much for doing so. On the way out, if you wouldn't mind hitting the thumbs up button, if you would not mind subscribing to the channel, if you like the streams, if you got anything out of it, please. I appreciate you guys. I'm so glad you were here. Awesome live stream again. Awesome 300 plus viewers. Awesomely, that's just great. We did not hit the like numbers that I wanted to hit, but we'll try it next week. So that's that. Appreciate you guys so much. Stay green this week, and good luck to everybody. And I will see you guys in the next video.